It's just now 12 o'clock. We're gonna give some time for people to join. We're in a few minutes. If you just joined us, feel free to use the Q&A. Tell us where you're joining from and what app or apps you're working on right now. While it's happening, I'm actually gonna launch a couple of polls here. Um, First one I'm gonna ask is how frequently do you run onboarding experiments? So we're gonna keep this going for a couple minutes while everyone joins. Let everyone chime in there. Ooh, a lot of people running them every month, every quarter. So a few people running them twice a year. A couple people real honest saying you can't remember the last time you ran an onboarding experiment. I like it. You can't optimize until you know where you stand, right? All right, everyone. If you just joined, we're going to kick off the product launch webinar in just a couple minutes. Couple things I'm going to ask is one that you fill out the poll is launched right now. We're going to ask how often do you run onboarding experiments, and then the in the Q&A you can actually use that to tell us where you're joining from and what app or apps you're working on. And while I have him, I'm gonna put him on the spot. Duncan, for your apps, how often do you run onboarding experiments?
Ooh, onboarding experience? Basically never, honestly. Um, it's just too much annoyance to put new things in. Paywall experiments, try to do more, but I'm excited to have to unlock onboarding outside of just new submissions.
All right. Cool. While we have that going, I'm actually gonna ship, let's see. I got another poll here. We're gonna let people keep chiming in here. So far, a lot in the every month category and a lot in the can't remember the last time they tested it. Pretty wide, pretty opposite ends of the spectrum. This is great. All right. Good, very good. All right. Okay. We're gonna give one more minute for people to join. I'm gonna kick off another poll here. Thanks for sharing. Um, all right. And the results are for everybody to see. About half of the respondents said every month. About a quarter said they can't remember, and the rest are somewhere in between. So people on both ends of the spectrum. All right. The next one I'm gonna uh, set live here is web to app usage. So, do you currently have or use a web to app funnel? Let us know. All right, a lot of people chiming in now. Well, a quick check. How many participants do we have so far in the webinar?
So far, we have 70 people.
Awesome. Cool. All right, everyone. We're gonna kick things off here now. Feel free to keep chiming in on that poll. I'll keep it up for a couple more minutes, but we're gonna get things started here. So today we're going to be talking about Superwall Flows. It's a brand new feature set from Superwall that constitutes a whole broad set of features that allows you to do things in whole new ways. I'm actually going to set that over here. Okay. Welcome, everyone. If you don't already know me, I'm Nick. I run product and customer growth at Superwall. My job is basically to be the product expert, drive some product decisions, and then help run all of our customers run better experiments. With me, I have Vola from our marketing side, who's here. She's going to help with a lot of the Q&A, and Duncan, who's our staff engineer and helps out with a lot of support and technical questions. So he's going to handle a lot of the technical questions that come up during the call. Let's begin. Superwall is built to help developers, like all of you, make more revenue by running better paywall experiments. We provide no-code paywalls, instant experimentation, and a ton of analytics that all the analytics that you would ever need to analyze those paywall experiments, and crazy rapid, fast iteration in real time. And it's worked really well. Onboarding experiment or paywall experiments have been our bread and butter. They're what makes Superwall awesome. But conversion doesn't happen on just one screen. We already see this happening where a lot of app developers are using multi-page paywalls to show 2 to 3 screens ahead of the paywall where users actually purchase to prime users to explain to them the value prop or provide some additional messaging or personalization that helps them convert more users to starting a trial or direct sub. But we're taking this insight a little bit further because most app developers only optimize single steps. A user who sees a paywall and subscribes. And this is kind of where we spend most of our time thinking about paywall and monetization experiments. But the reality is actually really different. Reality looks a lot more like this. User downloads an app, and this is after they've seen an ad or gone through Apple, the App Store search, or some other way to actually get them to the download. Users go through onboarding questions. Maybe there's some personalization. Maybe you're reassuring users that you can solve their problem. There might be a little app education. There also might be other things like permission prompts or OS settings that need to be set. And then there's a paywall. Reality of your whole monetization flow in an app looks very different. But it also looks like this. In a web to app funnel, there's an Instagram story maybe user saw, they enter the web funnel, there's a quiz, some personalized results, then the paywall, and then the app download. There's a whole spectrum of experiences the user goes through before they ever just see just the paywall. Or maybe a user cancels their subscription. Next time they open the app, they see a cancellation survey, and there are some save offers there to try and reduce churn. Or maybe there are different ways to get users to upgrade or cross-grade or adopt other features that improve retention. So maybe there's feature discovery by the user. That triggers an upsell offer, which leads to an upgrade and then unlocked features. So the entire journey of monetization exists a lot broader than just the individual paywalls. Monetization is one single screen. It's an entire journey. The problem is app developers tend to only optimize individual moments. And it's common. Like we asked Duncan just a moment ago what he's done with his apps, and he's focused just on paywalls because onboarding is too cumbersome. So we're going to talk a lot about this today. We focus on individual moments like an onboarding paywall, maybe a critical permission prompt, maybe an upgrade screen, but we treat them individually. But that's because it's really hard to optimize entire flows. It requires weeks of engineering work. I know this personally. I ran an iOS app for 5 years before joining Superwall. Onboarding experiments are tedious work, and it takes a lot of engineering time away from working on core value prop product features. They're hard to iterate on, and especially when you have to also manage things through app releases. All the required analytics to set up make things really cumbersome. Like, I can't be the only one who's gone through an onboarding experiment that you shipped and realize you were missing like 1 or 2 critical analytic events that are really necessary to actually analyze the winner. And I can't be the one who's spent time crying at my desk because my experiment doesn't work. And then it's hard to experiment across a whole user funnel. So what I want to do today is we're going to introduce Superwall Flows. It's a whole new way to build an experiment across entire monetization journeys. Flows let you design and experiment across the entire user flow or any kind of user flow directly inside of Superwall. You can build, connect screens, and optimize where things sit in that flow without ever having to touch your app code. A flow is a sequence of screens connected together with branching logic, or possibly just a linear flow, based on user inputs or attributes. So you can create things connected together in whatever sort of personalized, functional, seamless way that you want. Flow capabilities include multi-step experiences, branching paths, personalization, user input collection from either multi or single select elements or text entry or date and time pickers, tight integration with your native UX. I'm going to show a couple examples of this later that are pretty awesome. Experimentation, of course, because it's role, and paywalls, because there's always, we want to make sure that you always have access to the same paywalls that you already have now within these flows. So, who's ready to see it in action? Cool. All right. So what we do now is I'm going to flip over to a live demo, and we're going to show you exactly what Flows is meant to be. All right. All right. Here we are. This is kind of where everyone lives when we start off with building any paywall in Superwall. You end up in a blank screen. What I'm going to show you here is how to get started with these flows, how to piece screens together, and how to start adding some logic. So this is where I land. You'll notice a couple things are different in Superwall right away. One, this toolbar looks different. This is different from what you're accustomed to. Also, the way that I zoom in or look around has switched from a little bar to increase your zoom. Now it follows like Figma style rules. We can hold command and zoom in and out on your mouse to scroll in and out so that uh, you can see things in different views. So the first thing that you do whenever you want to create a new flow is you create a new paywall, and then I'm going to add a navigation element. And this navigation element, you'll notice when I added that, this flow view became accessible. So in here, I have a fixed footer and I have my pages. Now I'm actually going to do a couple things here. I'm going to modify this fixed footer right away. I'm actually going to put it within page 0. I'm going to actually duplicate this a couple times and drop into each page. And that'll make it a little easier for me later on. Cool. So I'm back at page 0. So this is the single device view that you might use to simulate what a user sees on an iPhone or an Android device or a web page. When I click flow, I'm going to see this whole new view in this canvas editor that is brand new. So what I see here is I have an entry point and I have my screens, and they're kind of floating around in space because nothing's connected yet. But I'm going to start connecting a few things. So I'm going to actually grab this entry point. I'm going to drag it here, and I'm going to, as I get closer, it's actually going to snap to this screen called page 0. And when I let go, it's going to connect. Cool. I've got page 1 or page 0. Now I'm going to connect to page 1. And then I'm going to connect page 1 to page 2. And just like that, I've already built a 3-step flow that I can then start designing and optimizing. But there's a lot more that we want to do with this. So here's a couple examples. One, I might decide I want to add a question in my survey, or I might want to have a welcome screen. All that's possible. So within here, I'm actually going to do a couple things. We've actually simplified down this navigation. If you've ever used a navigation before, you know, like you have to update this variable. This variable is contained within a navigation index, and then you have to increment, decrement, or set it manually. It feels a lot like being a developer. We've actually simplified this down. So now tap behaviors have this whole new UI, and there's this new one called navigate page. And navigate page is simply next or back. It's very straightforward. And one thing you'll notice, when I select next, this yellow warning flips to green, indicating that now my flow is continuous. So now when I select this CTA and click it, it's going to tell me that it triggered a navigate page action that progressed me to the screen. I can see here that this push uh, or this connector here is actually disabled because I need to actually go through and modify this footer or this footer CTA also. So I'm going to set the navigate page next. And I'm going to do this last one just because I want to. I'm going to update that as well. Cool. And so now I've created 3 pages. What you'll notice right away is there are these other options here. So push allows me to, when you see push, this is a drop down here that can let me control the animation between pages. So I can switch this to a slide animation, a fade. Push is the iOS native version, so I'm going to stick with that. Cool. Now, let's say I want to also add a couple more pages. Cool. I don't need to actually duplicate anything here or add another element. I'm just going to take this empty connector, drag in an empty space, and boom, I've got a brand new page that's already connected here. Now I'm going to add a couple things here. I'm going to set this as a vertical stack page. I'm going to center everything here. And I'm going to just start adding a couple elements. So I'm going to add a text element here. And I'm going to add this new element called multiple choice. And what this multiple choice element will do, I'm going to widen it here. And in this page, I'm actually going to set some margin here, or some padding. We'll call it 24, so it looks a little better. Cool. Let's call this 30, and I'm going to add a question here that's pretty commonly asked, like, how did you hear about this app? It's a pretty common question to ask. It's an attribution-based question. But then when I clicked on my multiple choice element, what I see now here are a couple new options that are brand new. So one is my selection mode can either be single select, it can be multi-select. I can also randomize the order, and then I can actually adjust the items here. So in this first column, I have my actual label. So I might say Facebook. And in the right-hand column, I'm actually going to set the value that gets set. So this is what you would actually set for like a custom user attribute or something in your actual app taxonomy. So we're going to call this Facebook. I'm going to add TikTok here. And let's call this a friend referred me. I'm going to add one more option because I want to add other. I'm going to call this other. Cool. Now within here, I have a multiple choice element and then I have this choice item. The choice item is where I'm actually going to set some of the styling here. And I'm going to set it to, I don't like that it's filled. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to adjust some of the padding, the borders here. I'm going to drop this down to like 50. Maybe it's 2 pixels wide. Cool. And now I'm starting to get closer to something that might actually design for my app. So now I have this multiple select item. I have this screen. What do I do next? The logical thing that might be is if I ask a different question, like, what's my goal? How might I actually navigate to or create some other branching path here? Well, I'm also going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to drag and open a new page in an empty space, but I want a branching path. So I'm actually going to go back to my original screen here. I'm going to drag open an empty space again. Now I've got 2 pages. Let's call it 3 pages. And now I have 3 pages, all of which I can actually customize where the traffic goes based on what a user selects once I update my routing condition. So I'm going to add a fourth here because I want 4. And this new element called routing condition appears. This routing condition lets me now set the logic for which branch is going to get what setting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add this rule. I'm going to find my multiple choice element, and I'm going to take the selected value. And then I'm going to say if they selected Facebook, they go to page 4A. I'm going to do the same thing here. And if they went to TikTok, if they select TikTok, they're going to go page 4B. If they said multiple, if they selected a friend, they're going to go page 4C. And then I could leave the last one blank if I want to, or I could specify that I want to be set to my other selection. Cool. And now my routing condition is updated so I can see when this multiple choice selected value is Facebook, TikTok, friend, or other, users get automatically routed to whichever screen they're supposed to be connected to. Now, you'll notice these are also yellow, and we said yellow means that the flow is blocked. So what do I need to do? Well, I'm going to go back to this screen, and I'm going to take my multiple choice items, and you can see I have this tap behavior that selects the item, but I need a couple more here. I'm going to add, again, this navigate page to the next one when it's selected, but these inputs are really great, but they're not really actionable yet. They guide people through a flow, but what if I want to see this on my backend? What if I want to do deeper analysis in my analytics tool? What if I want to have this set on a user object as a source of truth for this user? Well, you can do that now. So in addition to selecting the item and navigating the next page, I'm going to do one more thing here. I'm going to add another action that is a brand new action called set attribute. And this attribute allows me to create a name for it. In this case, I'm going to call it attribution source. You can call this onboarding attribution source or whatever it is. And if it's a web funnel, it's the same thing. Um, and rather than typing the value manually, I'm going to click my brackets here, and I'm going to add a variable for this choice item and have it set whatever the value is for each of those items that I set manually already. So now what this is going to do is it's not only going to navigate me to the correct page, it's going to select the item, but it's also going to set this attribute on my user object in Superwall. And there's some documentation that you can add so that your app can listen to that attribute when it's changed or when a brand new attribute is set, and then send that data to your backend or to Amplitude or Mixpanel or Postdog or wherever you're collecting your analytics. So now if I just collected and selected Facebook, and you can see my route lit up. And so now I'm continuing on to page 4A. One thing you'll notice is I move the screen around here. You can move screens however you want. You can always press this puzzle icon here, and it will snap everything back into place. And so now I can create more screens. Let's say I want to route 4A and 4B to the same screen, and then I want for C to have its own flow, for D also gets its own flow, and then after this, they all go back to one main thread. And just like that, I've created a whole set of branching logic and conditions that navigate users through this flow. So one thing, quick note here is what I've been doing in my work is I'll actually design my like my quiz or survey screen, and I'll just duplicate this a few times so I keep the same design format and don't have to reinvent it. But let's go back to a couple other flows here. I want to show you a couple of settings that you can do. Let's say I get to, I'm going to copy this footer and I'm going to place it in this screen. Let's say this screen here, this is where I want to actually ask for a permission prompt. Like let's say push permission. That's important to my app, it's important for users. Or it might be like a camera permission if it's a photo or video app. Maybe it's app tracking transparency. What we've done is we've added the ability for you to set now request permission. In this case, we're going to default to the notification permission prompt. But I'm going to set app tracking transparency. And then I'm going to decide if they grant permission or they deny it, what happens next. So because it's app tracking transparency, I don't want to block or send anyone down a different route. So I'm actually just going to have this in both conditions navigate to the next page. Cool. And so now this flow is correct. I can actually double click and see that this tap behavior triggered a request permission for tracking. I'm going to grant it. And now it told me that it would navigate use the next page. Cool. All right. So now what I want to show you here, now that we've set our custom attributes, we've added some permission prompts, And by the way, permission prompts, you can also, I'll go back to that screen. Based on what a user said, I could also add another custom user attribute if I want. So I could actually say, set an attribute, call this ATT permission, and set the value is granted. I'm going to add one here. Use that same key and call it denied. Cool. And now I can set this on my backend. So now I actually have like a record of whether or not they granted or denied app tracker transparency outside of Superwall. Cool. A couple of the things that you'll notice here. One thing is this auto advance underneath each screen. A lot of times when users download an app, there's like 5% drop off of people who never can move to step two. If you notice this is a weird behavior phenomenon, we've added some ways to solve that with this auto advance. So I can actually set here that after 2 seconds when user lands on this screen, I'm going to automatically progress them to step two, whether they tap the CTA or not. So what I want to do now is quickly show you a couple of flows that we built that have a lot of this built in, a lot of design. And we're going to start with this Blinkist onboarding flow that we've recreated. So a couple new features that you're going to see here. One is this is like a pure content page. This is getting started, but it also has this button that says log in. Now, this is the first time that I'm going to show you the ability to integrate with a native function. So custom actions, if you've ever used them in Superwall before, they allow you to call some native functionality from your app. In this case, I'm going to call my custom login that I have for my app. That login UI will then get displayed over top of the Superwall paywall. And then when it's continued, the Superwall paywall can listen for that completion with a completion handler and then progress users to the next step or wherever you want in your app flow. It's very customizable. So in this case, I get started. I'll move to number two here. On screen, second screen called page one, this CTA is going to actually request app tracking transparency like it just showed you and then navigate you to the next page. Here's an example where they add a single select plan. I'm going to navigate to the next page, and you notice that not only did the indicator move up, but now this CTA didn't light up until the first selection. I made a single selection here. And so same thing here. This is actually a multi-select, so I can progress to the next one. These are all getting set as user attributes, you can see. On page four, I have a different kind of selector. I have a grid system. So let's say I like Tony Robbins, I like his stuff a lot. I'm actually going to select him as an inspiration. That additionally is going to get set as a user attribute when I tap this CTA and pass me on the next screen. On here, I have a notification permission prompt. I can select maybe later. That'll bypass it. And I'm also going to add this event. This is a little different than an attribute. We can send a custom placement, which fires a specific new custom event to your analytics called skip push permission. So I can come back later. I have a screen here that shows an animation that lasts 7 seconds. And there's nothing user does on here. They're just going to wait while the personalization animation displays. And then it's going to auto advance them in 7 seconds to the actual paywall. Cool. Now that's an actual design flow. This is actually Blinkist onboarding flow that they have that we basically replicated and is now available as a public template that you can base it on. Let's go on to another design that I want to show you. This is the picture this onboarding flow. Now, one thing that you notice here is a user goes through some steps. There's a lot of content here there's a lot of like automating users through a set of flows. And each of these will fade from one to the next so the UI looks really nice. When a user reaches this screen, this is the paywall. You notice there's a bunch of screens after it because Superwall Flows now allow you to complete a transaction in the middle of a flow, wherever it is, and then without closing that flow, progress to the next step. So you can decide when a completion happens, what is the actual next step? In this case, after purchase, it's going to actually navigate to the next step. Cool. All right. So, do a quick recap. We talked about how to create branching paths, how to connect screens together, how to use custom permissions, how to auto advance users from one step to the next, how to use multi and single select elements, how to collect that user input and store it as a custom user attribute, both in Superwall on the user object and in your backend. And we talked about how to put the actual purchase screen wherever you want in that flow. Now, the picture of this onboarding, Blinkist onboarding, and ladder onboarding templates are all available now as public templates. But I want to show you one other example here. This is a cancellation survey where I'm going to ask users, hey, we saw you canceled your purchase, or it might be you canceled your subscription. Do you care to tell us why? And then the flow I have it set up where based on what a user selects, I'm going to show them a personalized offer to them. So like also like let's say they accidentally subscribe, they didn't mean to tap it. So I'm gonna take them to this screen that says like, oh, looks like that was a mistap, no worries. We'll actually help you out there. Or let's say that the trial wasn't long enough for me. I might want to show them an extended trial offer. So there's lots of ways that you can use this, but right now I'm just showing you things that are in the app. I want to make it clear, anything that you designed here can be used on the web in your web app through Superwall on an actual browser, exactly the same, minus the native permission prompts because you're not going to be able to ask those on a browser. But all the other functionality that you saw with multi and single selected elements, routing conditions, branching paths, and storing those user inputs is all accessible on web. Cool. Okay. So let's do this. I'm going to head back to the deck. We're going to get to Q&A here in just a little bit. All right. So now we've seen Superwall Flows in action. And you saw how quickly you can actually string it together a whole lot of screens, import different copy, different designs, and create all the different logic that you need to guide users through a flow. So let's talk about some real growth use cases. So how are teams already starting to use flows right now? Well, personalized onboarding with the goal of increasing higher conversion rates. Web to app funnels using as a brand new UA source. Web to app for us, it doesn't cost you anything. You don't need to put money up front to actually use a Superwall for web to app. You connect your Stripe account. We handle all the entitlement syncing for you. Um, and you can always borrow one of the templates that we've created. So web to app is a really easy use case to get started with right now, and really quickly optimize that funnel to try and drive a whole new UA source that happens before user ever downloads the app. Some of my customers are already starting to use this for cancellation recovery to reduce user churn. And then feature discovery is, I think, an underrated value of this is that you can actually guide users through a brand new feature that's been added to your app because you're constantly adding features. You're constantly adding new ways that users can interact with that. Or maybe you went through a redesign, you need to guide them through a couple educational steps. It's really easy to get this up and running quickly, and to guide users through a flow to teach them more to increase adoption or to drive upgrades. All right. So let's talk about experimentation because ultimately we want to run experiments. I can take my existing flow that I just showed you that I built, build it out, and then run an A/B test just like I do paywalls right now. We made it very simple. Until today, teams only could test in Superwall individual paywalls. Like in But now with flows, you can have way better insights into drop-off points, onboarding completion rates, conversion impact, ARPU impact, and ultimately see how your entire monetization flow can either improve or maybe not improve or be the same, um, in an actual experiment in Superwall. So you'll be able to see data like this that shows you not only a funnel drop-off points in different um, percentage drop-offs, but you can also see the different branching paths and how users navigate through your flows. So why does this matter so much? I'm gonna come back to this for a moment. there's a material impact across your team and business when you're able to test an entire flow that user goes through. App developers and growth teams are able to build faster, iterate faster, run experiments faster. Your engineers have dramatically less iteration work. And not only that, it speeds up the time that your app developers have, or your app and growth teams have to actually run experiments when you're not relying on engineers. And your users, they're going to get more relevant, better personalized experiences that help communicate that the product that they're downloading is actually going to meet their needs. So here's how we get started. I'm sure there have already been some questions about this, but we're going to tackle them now. Here's how I get started connecting to flows into experimentation. So one quick note here before we talk about this. Flows is still in beta. So we're still adding features. You'll notice that analytics that I previewed, it's missing. That's coming soon. I'll tell you when in a second. But all the functionality I showed you in the editor today is live right now. So here's how you get started. You're going to enable flows feature in your app by going to settings, public beta, and then enable this flows toggle. That'll actually allow you to see the whole new canvas view and start to actually start to build right away. You'll then create a paywall. You'll add a navigation element, open the flow view, and just go to town on it. Have fun. So here's what's coming soon. Analytics is about 2 weeks out. So all the UX that I showed you today is live. You can start building right now. Analytics will come out in about 2 weeks with both funnel drop-off views, and this user path style design when you have branching paths in your flow. We're going to add keyframe animations in the next quarter. And then next quarter, we're also going to start adding AI paywall and flow builders. You'll be able to prompt, you'll be able to design and not have to actually build everything manually. If you're like me, where you started to use Claude Code a lot or other tools, managing pixels just kind of sucks. Like you don't want to go back to that. So all that's going to be taken away. You'll be able to start implementing using AI tools very soon. Okay, that is Superwall Flows. So what I'd like to do now is let's turn it over to Q&A. What I'd like to talk through is open up to questions. So we're going to start by answering questions that are really specific to flows, and then we'll talk about any general questions after. So Vola, how are things going?
Amazing. We answered already 30 questions.
Fantastic.
Um, so yeah, let's start with the following. So are flows accessible via MCP? So is it possible to discuss it with Claude, the existing flows, and then ask him to design it on Figma and import in Figma to Superwall?
Not yet. That'll be coming next quarter. We're going to add some AI tools to help you. We have two MCPs right now, one for our docs and one with a new API that we just created that lets you pull Superwall data. So we're building that. Our architecture is a little bit complicated, but we're going to get there. So not yet. Look for that in Q2.
Got it. The next one. So can we A/B test onboardings without it having a purchase paywall? So onboardings
Oh,
and
yeah.
paywalls can be A/B tested separately.
Yes. A flow is a flow, whether you put a purchase CTA in there or not. A flow can be anything, any type of user journey you want to guide a user through. So yeah, you add a purchase CTA, don't add purchase CTA. It's there for you to use to create really beautiful things. Like I think your use case there might be, I just want to improve retention or feature adoption. Go ham on it. You don't need to add a paywall at the end or somewhere in the middle. Um, I think it's good to add that because then you can actually see how changes in your flow contribute to ARPU and ultimately downstream conversion. But yeah, it's really flexible. You don't have to do that.
Yes, so let's go with the next one. Is data collected via flows? Will iOS app will receive those data? For example, setting up profile in Flows app, will those data or any questions asked and users' responses be collected in iOS app?
Yes. Let me show you an example. So there is a little bit of code that you have to add here that you can set your app to listen for when the custom attributes are set by a user and then decide what to do with that data. So you can actually decide on your own that when this user attributes did change event gets triggered, listen for that and decide what to do with it. So yes, absolutely. All those events and user attributes you can start um, tracking right away.
Things we've done here. So also like there were several questions like that. So I'll repeat one. So did you say that cancellation survey flow will be available as template too? And when will the templates be available?
All those templates I showed you are already available. Everything's live in the templates gallery right now.
All right, and let's talk about migration. So how can I migrate my existing onboarding screens to Superwall Flow and start running experimentation?
Good question. The simplest way is to use Figma import. Figma import requires you to use auto layout for the entire frame of each screen, though. We've had a couple instances where users get stuck on this, and that's because they're only using auto layout on a few elements. So the fastest way to actually do that is just import the whole screen, make sure each frame for each screen uses auto layout, and you can pull those into Superwall. That's the fastest way, and then you can start connecting screens quickly. Um, that would be my recommendation, is to use the Figma import.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have some more. Is it possible to create an AI style onboarding screen in Flow where it appears that you're chatting with an AI to customize your
Hmm.
experience?
So not yet. We haven't added any sort of like chat interface style elements in Superwall yet. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that we might get to, but for right now, there aren't enough apps using that style of onboarding that we would prioritize that right now. Certainly
It's
something we're keeping an eye on as more chat interfaces
gonna
become more
happen.
popular.
Yes, it's gonna happen one day. And yeah, one more very important question. What about the loading time of onboarding flows? I have an
Oh,
onboarding flow with 30 screens. So
I totally forgot to share this. This is one of my favorite parts.
yes,
This
it's
is a
very
feature
important.
that
Like,
I've this is one
yeah.
of the features that I like really emphasize putting in there. So I'm gonna go back to this Blinkist style because there's some image assets here. So image asset loading. Here's an image that I want to add, and this is important because if especially you get like a photo or video app, image loading speed and the quality of the image are super important. And until now, the only way to actually add images and videos is to add them directly into Superwall. Then when the Superwall paywall or flow loads, the SDK would make a network call to actually pull that down from our servers. That's time. You have to limit your file size. It's really messy. So what we've done is actually add this ability to add a local resource. So let's say you already have your image assets or video assets in that binary that gets downloaded from the App Store. iOS unpacks it, everything's put in local storage. You can add your file path to that image here. And then what Superwall does in the SK is it will prioritize grabbing that asset from local storage first, where it will load instantly with whatever high quality image or video that you have first. And if for some reason it's not able to grab that, maybe the file path is wrong or it's a brand new asset, it will then fall back to whatever URL or whatever you've uploaded to Superwall. So yes, you can now start pulling image and video assets out of local storage and use it on the paywall so the paywalls load instantly with all the quality that you need. I can't believe I forgot that. That's one of my favorite features.
So yeah, like yeah, the second part of the question, do I need to show external loading indicator for user?
It depends on how your flow looks, but in most cases, if you're using this in-app, you just need like your normal loading screen. The SDK
Mhm.
initializes, it pulls the config file and starts to display everything.
So everything
Um,
is
but also try using the local image assets because that will improve all the loading time. It'll be so much faster. Well,
got it. All right, let's move to the next. So, can we tag screens for analytics beyond a simple ID? For instance, we currently have key moments such as registration, full screen loader, paywall, etc.
yeah. So that's that custom placement that I mentioned. Custom placements are actually available now and have been for quite a long time. A custom placement is just a custom event that you want to fire off when a user does something. So if they advance to the next screen, like on that CTA that right before they advance to it, you would trigger that event there. Um, and you can trigger those events wherever you want. So I like using custom user attributes to set them on a user object, but you can also just as easily make those custom events. Like you could create an event for allowed permission, denied permission, uh, uh, trigger the login, custom
Mhm.
action, anything like that that you want.
Amazing. Yeah, we have one more. So, can you add animations to text like fade in?
There are some animations right now. Full transparently, parent like animations just aren't great in Superwall yet, but they're going to be starting next quarter. So we're going to have a lot of work dedicated to making it animations and like really solid. So we're going to add keyframe animations and a few other things that are going to help on that side because we want to feel very native. Um, but yeah, you'll be able to have all that next quarter. But for now, animations are just a little bit limited.
Hmm.
Well, I'm looking at the Q&A. I'd actually like to go back to some of these others that are in here that have been ancillary because I think people should be able to hear some of these. I'm sure not everyone's actually going through the Q&A and looking. Duncan, are there any uh, questions that have an ancillary that you think we should make mention of out loud?
Yeah, I think one general note just to really hit on would be anything you can do in Superwall paywalls now, you can also do in flows. So like someone asked about localization support,
Yep.
um, fully supported, uh, sharing flows across iOS and Android apps.
Oh yeah.
Um, you can, yeah, just easily duplicate. Um,
And duplicate to web too. Build
and
out your
web,
flow on
yeah.
iOS or build out your web funnel and then import to iOS. Like you can go back and forth.
Yeah, and some questions about sharing data analytics to your third-party analytics provider and
Mhm.
sharing the answers to the questions during the onboarding flow to things like Firestore or your own provider.
Mm. Yeah, so I mentioned that. So we already have all the logic built to be able to send analytics to third-party tools. You would do the same thing that you would have done before, and the only thing that's new is this ability to send your custom attributes and listen for them on the app side and then decide what to do with them next. That's the only new part there.
And one thing I mentioned there too is any data like that that is user specific, it can be very handy to have as a user attribute as well. You can use later on in other
Mhm.
paywalls, or if you wanted to break down analytics based on a user attribute, very powerful.
I should also mention this. When you set an attribute on the user object, those attributes become filters that you can use later in your campaign audiences or later on the paywall or on other paywalls. It's set on the user object, so you can continue to reuse them over and over again. Cool. All right. Vola, any other questions that you saw that you've answered that are worth bringing up?
I think just like one more comment that user flows don't necessarily need paywall, so you can actually need like you can actually use different flows for your app, like educational ones, like anything you want to use and set up. So it's not necessarily finalized with paywall.
I saw a couple new questions in here. One of them is, can you add text input? 100%. So I'm actually going to show you how that's done here. So there are new onboarding elements that you can add. So here's the whole set of new onboarding elements that we have right now. We're continuing to add more. So we have indicators to show user progress throughout a funnel, multiple choice, date pickers, and then text element entry. So obviously when we drop it in, it's not styled, but users can drop in there whatever it is here that they set. And you can set the keyboard type, whether you want that to be just an email address, a number, telephone number, URL, like it'll pop up the right kind of keyboard on the user's device. I can add placeholder text. So like, let's say this is, I'm going to ask for email address. I'll call it john@demoapp.com. And now I've got a placeholder here. I can spell. So you can add text entry fields very quickly that can be used for any kind of text that you want to collect. And then, like anything else, you can decide now on this CTA, I'm going to also set an attribute, call this email, and I'm going to use that new text input value. So whatever they set as that value, I'm now going to set it as a user attribute. And then from there, I can decide what to do with it. I can also, um, like, there's lots of ways to do this. You can like those all whatever user enters. So like a lot of times you'll ask questions and have like an other. You can have that other open a text entry field and then save that as a user attribute also. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, actually, we have one question like to show. Can you show exactly how you apply a flow to an audience?
Sure. It's actually the exact same way that you add a paywall right now. A flows right now, if I save this here, I'm going to go back. I'm going to take a campaign. Let's see. Um, and if I add a new campaign, I'm actually going to use this demo here. When I go to create a new audience, which, by the way, the best practice, if you haven't already heard from me say this plenty of times, the best way to run a new experiment is create a new audience for each experiment. So I'm going to call this onboarding test 2. And then I'm going to add, this will change soon. It won't just say like add your paywalls. It'll say add your flow. So I'm going to add one flow and I'm going to add my other flow. And I'm going to set this as a 50-50. Cool. Or I might want to decide this new flow, I want to only run 10% of traffic. Cool. So that's how you do it. Now, one quick important note while I'm thinking about it. Let's say you don't want to show 100% of your traffic a Superwall flow. Don't have to. You could set it, use a feature flag on your backend and only send 10% or 20% of your traffic or whatever you typically would test your onboarding on before you actually default it, whatever the winners back to your native flow. So some customers are actually going to start only testing 10 or 20% of traffic through Superwall. The other 80% will see their native paywall or the native onboarding flow or whatever that flow is. And they'll take the winner of that test and build it back into the native paywall. So that way they're only building into their native flow what they know is actually a winner. So even if you don't use it for 100% of your traffic, use it for your test bed audience. It'll help you still reduce a ton of the work that your developers have to do. Cool.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, we can go through one more. So you showed an example where a native screen could be shown inside the flow, for example, a sign-in screen. Does this only work for presenting a native sheet, or can you have a native screen within a navigation push style flow?
This is probably a Duncan question more than me, but I you can do a little bit of that. Like
Mhm.
the example I gave is I want to tap login to log into my account. That UI from the native functionality gets presented above the Superwall paywall. You can log in, and then you can decide on your app side what happens when that completes. So we have the ability to listen for a completion handler in the Superwall delegate. You can also decide I want to actually take users out of the flow now if they log in. Because a returning user probably doesn't want to go through the whole onboarding flow again. You already know a lot about them. There's lots of different ways that you can do this. Some you can also use this for like a demo. Like there are plenty of cases where, like the picture this example. Halfway through my flow, I might want to take user through a demo where they actually take a picture of a plant. It does the analysis, and then I go right back to the Superwall flow once that completion handler is triggered.
Yeah, and on the specifically like the pushing on the stack part, I believe that's possible in our native SDKs on iOS and Android. I don't think that's currently possible on Expo or Flutter, but yeah, that's something that we'll look at.
I
Um,
believe that's correct.
just change with
Yeah.
the view controller like presentation style.
Yeah. That I think believe that requires you to, instead of registering a placement, use get paywall um, to show a custom view controller. Okay. Cool. Thanks for the question, Adam. All right. I see the question, what placement event would I use to show a flow when the app is launched after they cancel their trial or subscription? Awesome question. My preferred placement is app launch, but you could also use session start. And then what you'll use is the entitlement filters to filter them either to active trial, auto renew disabled, active subscription, auto renew disabled, or expired entitlement. So you're going to use those entitlement filters to target the right subscription state and then present that on app launch or session start. Cool. All right.
Yeah,
Uh,
we have two more from
cool.
Lauren. Yeah, so you could split a flow against a single paywall, for example.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We already have this customer already do this right now. They'll take a single page paywall and compare it against a 3 or 4 page multi-page paywall. The same principle is in use here. You just extend the amount of pages that you might add. So a really good use case for this is I want to test a flow that right now is at 7 screens. I'm going to expand it to 15. Or I'm
Mhm.
going to take my 30-page flow and see, do I actually need 30 pages, or can I just go down to like the 10 that actually make the difference for users? Um, yeah, the being able to test single screen versus multiple screen versus long form flows for short form, that's a big use case here. Lauren, I saw you also asked, with that text input field, if they answered in a particular way, could you send them to one screen? If they answered another way, could you send them to another area of flow? Yeah, absolutely. You can do things based on whatever attribute they set. So if they include certain keywords, the problem is that that's really prone to typos. So you can certainly do that if you'd like, but you're sort of depending on the user to have answered in a way that you would expect. Um, Definitely possible, but probably involves a lot of predicting what users might say. I imagine, Lauren, you have a pretty specific use case for this. Cool. Um, oh, Brandon, ask a good question. Does Android have different request permission functions than iOS? Yes and no. All the permissions are pretty much the same except for app tracking transparency. You obviously don't have that on Android. Um, but there are, I think every other permission that we have on iOS also works on Android. Um, and if you are curious, you can see all the permissions in the editor, but those certainly include camera, photos, contacts, course location, precise location, push permission, um, and I think I'm missing one. But there, just to let you guys know, Apple Health permission which is important for a lot of fitness apps. That'll be coming next quarter as well. I forgot to add that here, but I'll correct it.
Mm-hmm.
Apple Health Permissions is just a lot more nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right.
Amazing.
I want to answer these last few questions, then we're going to have to call it. Um, Question, can I split the audience in a flow without any condition, but just as I'm conducting an A/B test and send 50% of to one page and 50% to another? Sure. Yeah. You could have a single flow and split your traffic between two different branches in that flow, 50% go to one, 50% to the other. Totally. Yeah, that's acceptable. You could do that with the user seeds or just a random split. You could say like if they're in use seed 0 to 49, they're going to take branch A, and 50 and higher, they're going to take branch B. Cool. Um, all right.
And the last one, yeah.
I'm seeing self.label as the text input with some of the templates. How can I edit this? When I adjust the text now, it adjusts all the answers at once. So that's a variable that we're using. So self.label, um, what what I imagine you're looking at is like the multiple select element. You need to actually select the multiple choice element rather than the choice item. The multiple choice is where you can define the actual label that gets set for each individual selector. All right, everyone. Um, One more question. Bundling of apps works with the flow too. I'm not sure what you mean by this question, Suresh. Um, Maybe you can clarify a little bit before we head out.
It might be referring to local assets. You bundle in assets with your app and using them
Oh,
within the flow. That's just my guess.
oh, you're trying to bundle in the whole flow and Superwall that comes with the app download. I think it might be what you mean. Pricing multiple apps, the bundle. Apps. Oh, yeah, that's something that we already support, Suresh. So he asked about the ability to have like bundle subscription to give you access to a suite of apps. Yeah, that functionality already exists. Um, yeah, that's normal, just like entitlement um, features that typically requires you to set entitlements manually on your backend and control that with your own app logic. All right, everyone, we're going to end here. It's been a blast. Thanks for joining this presentation. I can't wait for you to try Flows. I can't wait to see what you build. I'm excited. Please give us feedback. It's again, we're in beta. Now's the time to tell us what you want, what you don't want. Bring your opinions. We want to hear them, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.